Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Have you ever felt absolutely hopeless when it comes to your health, body pain, chronic disease, mental and emotional distress, and your stress management? Yeah, I've been there too. And after years of my own health and healing journey, learning all of these different holistic healing modalities and tools, I've finally come to a point in life where I have absolutely never felt better. And I want to teach you those tools. And that's why I've created the Magnetic Mobility Meditation Program, designed specifically to tap into your body, listen to the inner wisdom it's trying to share with you, and really connect your mind, body, and soul so that you can be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself and be able to thrive in your life and truly learn about your own energy, what you need, what your non-negotiables are, as I combine this body-based practice to help you reclaim your health and thrive in your life. And did I mention that you get a 5-day free trial to the Holistic Human Performance Wellness Center, where you can access all these different programs, on-demand videos, meditations, breath work, movement, exercise, nutrition coaching, all to help you biohack your life, enhance your health and well-being, and to help you have these tools that you can put in your toolbox and you can utilize them whenever, wherever you need. Go get your 5-day free trial at www.holistichumanperformance.co/academy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw. And today we have a very special guest. We go way back to our college days. And it's cool that we've crossed paths in this realm and this industry. And I'm so excited to chat with him today. So my intention with this was I was kind of just asking God, source, universe, whatever you want to say. I would love to bring on an astrologer. I would love to bring someone on who knows about astrology and can come on once a month and give us the lowdown on what's happening. And it took some time, but Jake, we have with us today, reached out. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even know you were doing this. Okay, cool. And he just launched his business, which I'm so excited for him to just like talk about what he does and all the things. So without further ado, we have Jake Santora with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Gena. Very excited to be here. Admire what you do. And yeah, what a couple of bombers cutting it up,
Let's go.
Field a few years later. So this is super, super exciting.
I was so surprised when you hit me up. I'm like, wait, what? Okay, cool.
Yeah, my journey shifted from Ithaca football, and I found myself over the past 10, 11 years kind of working on human performance in totality, working with a lot of athletes. But I think you resonated really well on your podcast and everything you do of these spiritual awakenings, and this spirituality, and mine kind of came on, and right after I graduated, my mother kind of found her own spiritual awakening, and instantly. I was about 21, just really found my avenue into the spirituality side of things. And it was super fascinating to continue to learn. And then astrology, it's only been just under a year of studying it. But once I found it, it really kind of brought everything together for me of how a human performance could really find an authenticity of themselves and really lean into this spirituality using this. So we'll excited to be studying it, and it's been fascinating for me. And then hopefully we give some good insights for people to leverage for themselves because it really is so impactful.
It is. When I started leaning into astrology, things started to really like click for me. I know basics. I'm not an expert in this. That's why I'm bringing you on. And I was like, "Wait, this makes sense." And also my astrological sign, which by the way, guys, Jake did an amazing birth natal chart reading for me. And I was like blown away. I've gotten a couple, but I will say this whenever you are looking for someone, and we'll go over, Jake will explain what a birth natal chart reading is. When you're looking for someone to read your birth natal chart, like they're each going to have a different vibe, a different energy, a different theme of what they particularly kind of specialize in, I guess you could say. And so I was like blown away with his reading. I'm like, holy shit, like we knew each other in college, but we didn't like know each other like that in college. We saw each other at parties, like, yo, what's up? And like just, a couple of athletes just like having a good time. And yeah, so I was
I
like blown away.
I appreciate that. I think when I first found it, I didn't know what the sign was. I didn't understand what these represented. I didn't know the houses, right? I think like a lot of us, it's
Mhm.
even when I ask people, well, what's your sign if astrology comes up, and they'll say, Cancer or
Yeah.
Libra or what have you, and I always go into, one point that I'll point out with kind of what I'm calling revolutionary astrology. It kind of goes off the belief system of evolutionary astrology, where we came here on Earth, and our soul being is kind of the essence and these energy forces of our planetary and zodiac sign mock-ups in these houses. And the representation of the houses is really how these energy forces of our identity manifest into the world, right? Each house
Mm.
representing a different experience. So when we did yours, we did look at the seventh house. You had some really good energy and planets mock up in that house. I believe it was like Neptune was in there, and Uranus was in there. So being able to just ask questions, I think, in the readings that I provide is just hopefully giving ability to tone into some of those energy forces. And that's where the spiritual side comes in, where there's no
Mm.
judgment, good or bad. It's really looking at this soul mock up and saying, well, these are the natural urges that are within my unconscious mind or in my spiritual force. And looking at your life experiences now that we're older was so fascinating to me as well, of asking these questions and be like, wow, it just makes so much sense, and it kind of gives this calm and comfort to the purpose and reality of being here on earth to learn these lessons and what that can connectivity to your body and your experiences have. And once you had this, I like to call it the map, where athletes we call it the playbook, but
Yeah.
so much depth to it that you can really hone into these forces and really find so much benefit to them. So, yeah, it's been a blessing since I found it, and I think it is trying to keep it simplified. But going back to
Yes.
that trilogy of signs as well, right? You've got a sign that's your sun, you have a sign that's your moon, and the sign that's your rising. And I think just even with those three, you can really find some powerful perspective in yourself. But, you know, there's so much to a chart that people could go into that it could relate to anybody experiences if they want to analyze it for sure.
That's why it's such a mastery because you really have to study this. Like, this is an entire education system. I mean, just looking at a birth natal chart, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? It's like overwhelming to look at. But what I've learned about these types of readings is that it shows you your soul's like blueprint and who you are as a person. And like I said before, I learned so much about myself when I did lean into these different aspects. And again, like I did it for myself because it was healing for me and I wanted to learn more. And I think it's so fascinating because it really is rooted in science, also science and spirituality, two sides of the same coin. We always talk about that. Um, but let's for the listeners, what is a birth natal chart?
Mm. So it's really the point in time when you were born, where if we're just looking up right now, wherever you are, just look up. And I think that's where sometimes astrology we forget. We look at this map and we look at this wheel, right, with these different symbols and signs. And I think the realization for me was these living energy forces above us, right? I love the moon just as an example of it's forever changing. 28
Yeah.
days, it's big, it's small, and like that in itself could be something that you could start to lean into of where the moon status is, how does it relate to your own moon, and where is it angled in, resembling of Earth right now. So looking at the different degrees in time, you're able to see these planets at your birth, where they specifically were in the
Mm.
universe at your birth time. And I think for those listening that have followed you and that know sound bath and look at frequencies almost, right? The frequencies off these bowls are similar frequencies that these planets are giving off from the universe to the earth, and it's correlating to our energy within, right? So
That's so cool.
yeah, right, when you start to think, oh, I can just look up and know there's this massive Jupiter planet that has so much volume, and its frequencies are hitting me here on Earth. So at your birth time, it really looks at your natal chart of what position and what house was this planet in, and the representation of the zodiac signs are going to be, well, what, star alignment of that sign was that representation similar to your houses. So really looking at time and degrees is going to give you that customized approach of your own natal chart to look at, because it's literally what the alignment in the universe was when you came out of the womb and were birthed into this earth. And I think the second piece to it, what you mentioned as well, and what I found so beneficial to it was, you know, there was a reason for it. There was a
Mm.
reason that we're here. There was a reason that these planets align. And if you do believe in reincarnation or you believe in these past lives, I can look at my seventh house and be a sun in Libra and represent that relationships and finding harmony and balance in those relationships is so pivotal in my life. And then I can look at my past experiences and really look at when was it not in balance, and that's balance for my own health, to other people's health, but really looking at that mock-up of there's lessons in here, there's powers in here, there's benefits from all the different mock-ups, but really how I came out of the womb for
Mm.
the journey that I'll have here on Earth is going to be represented in that natal chart.
Whoa. So why not learn about it?
Exactly, exactly. Because I think the consciousness, right? Then it brings the
Yeah.
consciousness of understanding our perspective and purpose, and allows us to lean more into it for sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now let's talk about June. What kind of like themes, what are the listeners, the conscious collective, what do we need to know about June? Because I heard there's a lot going on in June. So
Well, I think what's really cool is look what we're doing. We're talking, and look at your manifestations of hoping to find an astrologer, and to have the connection and companionship. I think even my nerves of talking astrology, right? It's awakening now over the past few weeks even more because it's Gemini season. So
Mm.
there's so many different signs, there's so many different planets, but I think for this week we really want to focus on the energy forces in the universe. So the sun being in Gemini, right above us, the sun is so powerful, and that Gemini representation, those energy forces coming together, is gonna go to the collective conscious. So that's where the seasonalities come in, right? We just came out of Taurus, now we're in Gemini, and we'll be in it for the next couple of weeks. So leaning into those energy forces of the Gemini, yes, we'll get into natal charts of where you could find the best way for yourself to potentially lean into those energy forces. But even just looking at Gemini, it's going to bring the sense of curiosity. Geminis
Mm.
want to learn. Geminis want to communicate. We want to listen. It's the resemblization of the twin, right, as the symbol. So if you ever go to your own natal chart, and those that if you need a natal chart, please reach out to us. We can support you with it. But you'll see this beautiful twin sign, and where it might be represented in your natal chart is going to represent those experiences in life that you might have that will revolve around communication, higher learning. But I think curiosity is the biggest beneficiary to Gemini season. So being curious of, yes, maybe your self urges into some of those things, but where do you want to learn? Where do you want to adapt yourself to higher learning? And where do you want to educate people to? But communication coming back, right? Being on this podcast now, the way that we go through social media, but being very insightful of how you're communicating, and maybe leaning into what are these urges of ways that I communicated that didn't feel good to me,
Mm.
right? Going back to the I, to the ways that I want to communicate, and leaning into those forces, whether you're a Gemini sun or a Gemini rising or not, wherever it lands, you'll find more perspective for the self identity. But lean into, again, the ability to absorb this energy of learning and communicating in the world is just going to be so impactful, I think, to the collective consciousness right now.
Okay, cool. So I know with myself, I've also been, June's always been like a really fun month for me because it's like summer's here, my birthday's in June. And with June, I feel like there's this like fiery energy. It's like coming out of your shell, especially for me because I'm a Cancer crab.
You're
Coming
also a
out.
Gemini. You also have Gemini in your 12th house. So I will say for you that Gemini in your 12th house, which resembles, the transition, right? Loss to, but loss of like being able to let go of things. So
Yeah.
preposition when it was, you've got Cancer and Sun kind of in your 12th, but it's intersected with that Gemini energy. So not to go on a tangent too much of all these intersecting of energies, but the 12th house, that representation of you probably before you expand into June, my assumption might be, oh, I wonder if Jenna really thinks about what she's going to do in terms of communicating and in terms of expanding to things she might learn and how she might go about it, because the 12th house is really that unconscious mind too. So maybe you have a lot of experiences of thought, and then my thought went to the manifestations of, man, look at all the incredible things Jenna does, right? It's frequency bowling. We had a great meditation together. You're a trainer, you're a teacher. I mean, it's so fascinating to see that. I think Mercury, which we'll get into shortly, of the connection with Gemini in your first house, shows that identity, but I think that's what I would correlate cool. So I don't know if you see that energy forces of your Gemini in your 12th, but that's where my mind kind of went, and how it all must flow out into June would be fascinating.
100%. I'm also just, like I said, it takes some time to learn about astrology. And also if you're just getting like your toes wet into this kind of world, it can be a little bit overwhelming with all the things you're trying to learn about. But I will say, once you do learn about that, it almost becomes like automatic. Like I'm at this point where I literally was like, universe, I would like an astrologer, please. Like, here's my order. And like, I know that sometimes things happen the next day. I also know things happen a year from today. And I kind of was just like, I almost have to I realized this about myself. Instead of like, I don't want to say reaching out to people, but it's almost like letting people come to me kind of thing, like putting my order up to the universe and then just like kind of being patient and trusting and knowing that that's going to come to me. And that's exactly what happened. You literally hit me up.
Yeah, well, I think the spiritual side, we used to have a saying that I was like, when I'm at a restaurant and I order salmon, I just kind of then sit there and wait for the salmon. I don't go back to check
Mm,
the cook. I don't tell the cook that it needs to be this ingredient, it needs to be this, because the way it might manifest, we don't even know, right? And I think
mm,
I have found as well when I lean into these forces, sometimes I try and get so specific of this is how it should be, this is what it should be, or you lean into that belief of optimism of it'll turn out the way it's supposed to, but you still really want those specific details. So I think letting go and letting that come through as well as that salmon, because sooner or later it will arrive, and man, it might be even better than you anticipated for sure. It might come with a champagne bottle that's spraying and it's got glitter, like you never know. But I think that's what's fascinating. I think the astrology side too is what you're doing of asking yourselves questions, right? And I think that's where our readings are a little bit different, is just questions. Did you feel this? How did you feel? And modern psychology, as I've been getting my master's in psychology for marriage and family therapy, has only opened up more avenues to the environment affecting our urges, the environment affecting those energies. But as you said, come back to the I, right? Where is this coming from? From I, and that standpoint of, man, it's manifesting for me the way it needed to almost.
love that. You had a question on the Google Doc. I can't remember what that question was, like the theme of what we want to like ask ourselves for this month in
Yes.
Gemini season.
Yes, the collective question. I was thinking here, and I sat with myself, but it was when was the last time you asked a friend or a partner about something that could be recognized as part of their identity, and you were generally curious about their response? And the curious response side of things hit me more of when we ask a question, where does our mind go? Where does that sign go? And the Gemini focus there, right? Absorbing a lot of knowledge. Now, at times, the darker side of Gemini, we might be too spread out, right? Maybe not in terms of the categories of what we want to learn, but if you want to learn art, music, and all these different things, can you have enough time to absorb good quality of knowledge? So the
Mm,
curiosity side, really, yeah, ask yourself that when you are asking a question, what is your intent? What is the intent around it? And is it to gain this insight of things you've taught me over, in the relationship of things you're doing, of what I can gain there, and then right back. Astrology is a beneficiary of things we can teach other people, but that was my collective question of when have we really been genuinely curious about someone close in our relationship because it might be so beneficial to their identity and something we could learn from, and really being curious of that answer, I think, allows you to sit with your own Gemini feeling too of where it might be representative, but just overall that curiosity of forces that you want to absorb.
okay, cool. I'm definitely gonna ponder on that. There were like so many things that came up for me. But the key is the intent. Like, what is the intention that you're trying to get out of it?
Yes, yes. What's the intent from curiosity? So, yeah, I'd be curious where yours does it go to, like partnerships? Does it go to community and friendships? Does it go to family?
It goes to relationships and it goes also to like community slash business. So, what I've been noticing, especially literally right in the beginning of June, um, it's almost like the relationship aspect, I am kind of letting things resolve themselves without over analyzing, overthinking, over communicating, or whatever that might be, or like withdrawal totally. Just kind of like analyzing and almost like waiting. And then in the business sector and community, that's like growing and prospering of what I actually wanted to like. Oh, I didn't quite know because business is always changing in entrepreneurship, like depending on where you're at in your season in your life. And I kind of was like, you know what? I'm just gonna surrender and I'm just gonna like say yes to things that feel really good to me, keep the things that are working going, and the things that are not working, just kind of let them fade out. And that's what I've been doing. And that has been growing and prospering in terms of like, I call it soul tribe community. Which is cool. So that's pretty cool to like look at the bigger picture. But I will say when it comes to the smaller details of things, I get a little like frazzled. Like I'm not really good with this. I just like don't care enough and it overwhelms me.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
I'm like, you know what? That's okay. That's me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of thinking, a lot of processing, right? Gemini in the 12th. That's interesting to even hit then. And then when you went there, because my Gemini is my fourth house. So when I, relate back to that curiosity, mine goes into my family. So the fourth house
Mm,
resembling family, kingship, and even our home. And man, these past couple of weeks, it's just been flowing of why am I here? Where am I going? Or what is this relationship? Yes, one-on-one partnership, maybe father, mother, and brother, and things like that we all experience. Because partnership can be more than just romance, right? It can be
yeah.
business relationships and things along those lines. But finding that sign and then doing what you kind of just did of where is this showing up in my life is a great correlation to make because it's not showing up for me too much in my community, right? I kind of understand where I love, the people that I want to be around, the spiritual realm, the astrology realm, sports and athletic realm, but it definitely comes up in family perspective. So for everybody of looking where this Gemini is and those curiosity and thoughts and adaptation of communication, where is that showing up in life could be impactful because even having your chart up, and hopefully this isn't just a Jena analysis, but your the other sense of Gemini for people that want to be educated on astrology, especially this week, staying on theme. We talk a lot about rulership, and rulership is where the planets can come in, right? Gemini is this beautiful sign. It's got the curiosity, but it aligns really well with Mercury. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It is really fast. It goes around the sun. It rotates around it very quickly. It's also a representation. It used to be called the planet, the messenger from the gods. So again, leaning into that communication side. So when you can find Mercury in your natal chart as well, you're going to see similar energy forces to the Gemini. So another great piece of the rulership is now where's more to this narrative, right? Gemini is a great sign to see, but maybe it's not that strong for me or you based on it. The seasonality is going to bring it out, like we're seeing in our conversations of things we're experiencing over the past few weeks. But Mercury being in your first house is going to represent the identity piece. And it's opposing the seventh house, which is relationships. So now you're looking at, what is the communication in partnerships that allows me to still keep that identity, which with your career is so insightful to see. And those smaller things was like, Jenny isn't going to be bothered by these smaller things because the real core to that identity is, how you communicate. And maybe there's only so much energy we can really exhibit because there's so much energy within us that is different. But in those momentary traits, looking where that Mercury is in our chart as well is super impactful to gain more clarity on our story. Because to what we're saying, even as I'm talking about bringing in a planet to the Gemini, it's like, wow, there's a lot to this theme we can gain some clarity on based on where it aligns in the natal chart. So it's funny though when we start to hear it verbalized out to each individual so specifically to them, and then you look at your chart and you're like, oh, that's super cool because it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it's almost like validation too, where you may have been like questioning yourself. And that's why I love the birth natal chart readings because you may be questioning yourself and you're like, am I going crazy? Like, why do I keep thinking about this? Like, what's this energy? I don't understand. And then you look at something like this and you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm not going crazy. Like that makes sense.
And I think that's the biggest effort, right? And I think for anyone that, as we chat, if there's overwhelmingness to looking at your own natal chart, it really is. If you're listening to this, you're 90% there, right? I think this growth of astrology and I think this new form where it's more philosophies, right? Because you're
Mm,
yourself. It's not religion, it's not culty type of thing. It's really this powerful energy force that gives you the authenticity and the power to lean into those things and acceptance, right? I deal with the same thing of why I wake up with anxiety. It's like, well, was it my childhood and things that I stressed in? Is it, you're getting married and you're running a business. I'm running a business and I'm just trying to continue to get the word out. Like things are happening in all our lives. Think about the mother with the children. Think about all these things. So when we wake up with that instant hit of anxiety, it's knowing spiritually we're gonna be okay, but where can I gain more clarity of these urges? To your point, is just being conscious of them. It's like now when I have a moment, it's like, oh, that was a Mercury moment, right? I was on a podcast today, or I'm going to do reading at the library today, and I have class a little bit later tonight. So it's like, oh, I'm having a really good Mercury day coming out of Taurus season where it was more stability and financial gains. And oh, you can just, the universe wants to be on our side. So it's like leaning into the energy out there with it within is just so captivating.
love that. Okay, great. I'm so happy that you're, and also again, like I know you were a little bit nervous just in general to like put your stuff out there, but this is awesome. Like this is so clear. You're speaking with confidence. Like you love this stuff. This is a passion of yours. So I'm so happy that you
Uh,
came on to share this.
It is very nerve-wracking for sure because it's such a different term, and I'll shout out my mentors. For those that might know the athletic space, Ricky Williams was someone I met a year ago, and he's been so impactful. He studied astrology. I mean, he's 20-year vet, so I get to sit down with him. He was the former Heisman winner, retired when he was late 20s because he had such a spiritual awakening of himself, and he found astrology, and he leans into it even more than I could right now because there's so much. So
Yeah.
hopefully being a gateway to simplify it and be a mentee and get the word out is really what I hope to keep doing. And it's great for these types of platforms because it's so powerful. But him and his wife, Linnea Myron, just so special individuals. So I think the more and more we get the awareness out, even just in simpler terms, is powerful. And I do love it. It's hard to study. There was probably a couple months ago that I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore. Now I'm talking about aspects and squares, and then you're living it, right? So it's
Yep.
not always easy to live it because the self acceptance of those urges, maybe they're not always great if we identify it in our social construct, but when you can take these energy forces and you can look at a map of your energy forces, I think in the universe and in the world now, it couldn't be any more beneficial because discrimination and inequality, this takes it all out. It's not about black, white, female, male. It is these energy forces of the universe that were here for your purpose and your role to play in the system of society. If we all lean into that more and more, with conscious effort and a radical responsibility, I think that's how a beautiful revolution can come forward. So no, I love talking astrology, and we only covered a couple things for sure. But again, keeping it simple and just honoring those energies is so powerful.
It's literally for everyone. And this, I had an image pop into my mind as you were speaking. So I was recently in Portugal and just speaking of like it's for everyone. So we're leaving the airport to go to our hotel. And to my left, I see these statues, these big statues of people looking up at the stars. And I literally was like, this is really cool. Like, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. And I'm in a completely different country at this point. And I'm like, they're literally looking up at the stars. Like, that's incredible.
Love that, right? We forget when we look up. We're like, wow, that moon is cool. It's like, no, that thing is miles away with a force of energy that is vibrating down to us. And that's so funny you mention it because I think when I really had a more of awakening to lead into it was, I think I suffered a little bit at times when we all get down of like you're walking by someone, what are they gonna think of me? Even though you don't even know them, but it's just like that
Yeah.
uncomfortable seconds. And I would always look down. And I was like, let's just look up. Let's start looking up. And now I'm on Skylight app. I'm looking at the stars. I'm seeing what alignments, where is Mars, and you start to really study the planets themselves. I mean, that's what's super cool is let's look up, right? The 1800s when they finally discovered these stars and these movements when it first came out, you'll start to see the energy manifest here on Earth, which is so cool. So, wow, it must have been a great experience in Portugal for you. See, it's following you. Astrology is
It's
following
following
you.
me. No, I've definitely been leaning into it more. And ironically enough, so tomorrow is June 5th. I didn't even realize this. I did not plan this out. It's the new moon, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm doing I wish you were closer, a beach sound meditation. And I literally was like, oh shit, it's the new moon. Like this is awesome.
That is so cool. Yeah. And then when you start to plan it out, whether you did that unconsciously or consciously, think about the captivating experiences because you're literally leaning into the energy forces, right? And it's just, then it starts to just be the most beneficial thing we could do, and that's show up. Show up every day, and you
Show
just
up.
see these energy forces because the vibrating off those bowls and the way that you'll align those frequencies that hit the soul beings that are there is going to resonate with the moon, which is nurturing. So the moon's going to represent a lot of nurturing vibes, a lot of nurturing energy, and forever shifting. So it at its capacity. Oh, what an experience for those that are able to go and put forth. It's just even more powerful for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so excited. But can you tell us where people can find you and your work and your readings? How can people get in touch with you? And I'll
Yes.
put this all in the show notes as well.
Beautiful. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, those want to learn more about kind of what we do. It's Captain's Legacy, and really it came to me a few years ago, and it really is about the embodiment of being the captain of yourself and writing your legacy. Right, as we've mentioned here, um, we're all here for a purpose. There's a way that we want to write this narrative, and the environments can be tough. The internal environment can be tough. So really Captain's Legacy is just the representation of finding better perspective and purpose of those things, and astrology plays a role into it, but we also do combine scientific spirituality where we're going to look at this unconscious mind. As we said, we can look at some past experiences in a meditative hypnosis state almost, and
Ooh.
some modern psychology where we'll reframe the emotional attachments and frequencies to those experiences so that when we get an uplift in life in the future, these moments that come up, those urges are just going to be a little bit different to vibrate at a higher frequency. So it's called an unconscious expedition. That's kind of our main private session. But Side that, if you're just looking at astrology, like Jenna said, I did a nice astrology video. They're 10, 15 minutes long, but just a quick analysis if you have a question or want some insight of astrology. We offer those as well. So captainslegacy.org is where you can find us and get things going from there.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much for coming on.
So thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, guys, Jake's going to be with us every month. We're going to be going over the themes of each month and astrology. And if you guys have any questions, please reach out to myself, my team, Instagram at Gena Bishaw, GenaBshaw. And or you can email us. And if you have any questions that you would like to learn more about. And you can also find Jake. I'll put that in the show notes. So if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.